Folks, welcome to week 5. This week I have Chancellor, my son, helping me introduce this topic. And the reason is because this week we ran into some troubles with Jennifer and John. Jennifer and John have been on a ketogenic diet, Jennifer for over a year and a half, and her husband for over 6 months. They reached out to me when they wanted to step up their game, lose a little more weight, and take on some autophagy. What that meant is we had to address some habits that were sneaking back into their life, or maybe ones they didn't even know they were doing. This week, when John runs into some trouble, we address why he's not sleeping well and how does that impact the ketogenic diet. So, Chancellor is my youngest son. What are the rules at our house about sleep? What are some of the important rules that you've had to follow because you have the lucky slot in life of being my kid? What's the rules about sleep at our house?
We have to go to bed at 7 p.m. and at least get 8 hours of sleep.
Right. So the 7 p.m. was a very important rule when they were in kindergarten, first grade, second grade. Now that you're 12, do you really go to bed at 7?
No, I go to bed at around 8.
8 or 9 o'clock, yeah. Take a look at this video and you'll see why a ketogenic diet is more than just eating fat. It is how do these behaviors fit into your life in a long-term pattern. I hope you enjoy this video.
Hello, everybody. We are live again Sunday night, 7 p.m. And you know what? We are doing this for you, Dr. Boz, John, myself. We do this every Sunday night so that we can give you information to help your keto journey go just a little bit smoother. So let's get started. Dr. Boz, how are you?
I've had a great week. I had a big event that I've been counting down to for a long time, happened on Friday.
Yay.
And that was like, yeah, one of those, life can start after that event. That's how big it was for me. So I, on my personal keto journey, I was not perfect. That was stressful, and I was even as a ketogenic doctor and advisor, that those habits happen to me too. How about you? How are you?
I think I might have fever. I didn't cancel the show, but I am not feeling well. I think the last 3 weeks of travel have caught up with me, although I don't get sick very often, and I took some Tylenol, so I think I'll be fine.
Well, you should know that on a ketogenic diet, your white blood cells have the distinct advantage that they were grown, because you've been on a ketogenic diet for a while, that your white blood cells were grown in one of the best hormone and anti-inflammatory states. So whatever little critter is attacking you, at least your white blood cells are a better version of them than they would be if your insulin was high and you were living with even if your sugars were normal, if your insulin was high, your white blood cells get sluggish, they don't live as long, and they don't have the vigor that they have to fight off those infections. So if that's any consolation.
Well, that's interesting because we usually get sinus infections at least once a year, and I don't think any of us have been on antibiotics since we've been on keto.
No.
Very good. You know, one of the things I talk about whenever I'm explaining the ketogenic diet and the immune system is that my mom, whose cancer was in her white blood cells, had been on antibiotics for 50 of the 52 weeks prior to going ketogenic. And then the next year, despite having worsening cancer, now 72 years old at that time, I think it was 3 weeks of antibiotics once she went ketogenic. So it's a powerful improvement that, you fight off your infections. 80% of the reason an infection gets better is all about your immune system. There's a little bit that I can do with those antibiotics, but your white blood cells win every time. So when did you guys get back from your travels?
We just got back today.
So that keto train that everybody loses when they go, when they get on a traveling binge, I'm guessing that's going to arrive back in your life anytime soon?
No, not at all.
Okay. So let's hear about, should we do you first, Jennifer? Just hear about your numbers, or should we do John first?
Mine is really quick. We can get through with mine. Through the trip, I was really good. I did my fasting. I did perfect. There were 2 days, I think the flying days, the days that I took air travel were horrible. One day I woke up with the worst blood sugar that I've ever had since testing. and I want to say it was like 110 or something. It was horrible. And my ketone was like 0.7, or I'm not really remembering, but it was horrible. And since I've been sick, I didn't test, but it's usually pretty good. I have a feeling it has to do with me not feeling well. It has to do with air travel. So I'm just going to get past that. I'm not even going to worry about it.
You know, it's really powerful though, because when you look at the change in behavior, I don't care if I'm helping somebody with carbohydrates, with, cocaine, with marijuana, with sleep habits, with exercise habits.
Yeah.
The journey when life is not stressful or at least routine, they can get into a pattern. We like that. We feel comforted when we're in those patterns. But as soon as that world gets shaky, like we travel or somebody in the family gets sick, or you suddenly have the duties of taking care of a sick child, that increased level of stress can be the one little trigger that says, oh, here's what happens every time I get on an airplane is I have those peanuts and then I want that cookie. And that's just what I do. That's who I am. And when you get sick, some of those old habits show up saying, well, but this is what I've always done. And so the key when you see the shift of your system, increase those sugars, decrease those ketones, and you're like, oh, I don't even want to look, that's awful.
Yeah.
Then don't look for a few days. It's okay. This isn't about this mandatory, you don't have cancer. We're not doing this in this incredible strict zone. We're doing this for the long game to say, we want to take off the last 50 pounds. That's part of your goal. And the biggest moment is show you and kind of maybe even model behavior that says, hey, you just have forgiveness when you're sick. Don't fall off the keto wagon as much as you might want to, but have forgiveness that you're not going to have the best sugars, and you might need to not check sugars for a couple of days and then say, all right, now let's get back on the keto wagon.
Yeah, and to make things worse, there was a Christmas party we went to last night, so I totally ate past my fasting window because it was social, and I drank. So I'm sure that's what put me over the edge, and I'm paying for it today.
Right. Well, and it's very interesting to watch when patients they do well, and I think John's example of the first week fasting and I want to do more fast, and then life hits them, and that's really where I think the skill of being a good clinician is to say, this journey is about, let me show you how I would have grace in that moment to say, this change behavior isn't something that is magical, but is a little bitty step in the right direction. And then I like to think, if you've got a good coach involved, you can say, here's some tips and tricks that I would do in the moment of I feel crappy. Like I told you, I had a pretty stressful week too. Yeah. I was trying to check my Instagram numbers for glucose and ketones every day. I was going to check it every day last week. I made it to Tuesday, and then the wheels came off, and the kids had these events, and I forgot about this, and then I had this like really important mental game that I needed to get ready for on Friday. And by the time Friday got over, I'm like, I need a glass of wine. Is there any sugar?
I know.
So, yeah, it's
totally
real,
get
those moments come into your life, but what happens the next day is you do feel sluggish, and you do feel like, oh, now I have more like commitment to say, why do I not do that very often?
Yeah.
And how do I have the grace and forgiveness for myself and those in my support circle to say,
yes,
let's try again tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, before we move on to John, I just want to talk to the audience real quick. I want to let you know that if you find these shows that we do on Sunday nights valuable, could you please share this out to keto group, share it to your friends. We really want to help a lot of people out there, even if they're starting keto, they're struggling with keto. Our goal for this live show is to help lots of people. We are all givers. Myself, John, and Dr. Boz, we are very giving people. Please share it.
Yes,
all right.
Yes.
Let's get
all right,
started.
John, let's hear. How are you? Let's unpack the travel week for you.
Well, I went to New York, as you know, and I did not go off the diet as much as I wanted to try some baba ganoush or New York bagels, New York cheesecake. I think the worst thing we ate was some street food, which is what's that, lamb meat, like the gyro meat, which
okay,
it might have some carbs in there. I don't know. But my numbers were averaging about 70% Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I think I would make it through an 11-hour fast. I mean, you told me to go down to 10 hours.
Okay, good.
But then my lack of sleep, I have a hard time sleeping. And then
Right.
I would, we did a lot of walking in New York, a lot of physical stuff, and that made my knee pain worse. So my drinking increased at night before going to sleep. And then
Let's just pause for a second. So last week we talked about, you use that glass of scotch or whatever it is that you drink to really help with getting your brain to shut off and having a good night's sleep. I talked about how that's a really common coping skill for many people, and it becomes a very teachable moment for a barrier to do really well on a ketogenic diet. So instead of saying, let's fix all your vices at once, we said, okay, let's see what happens if we can give 10 hours where you put that scotch in at least 10 hours before your circadian rhythm starts the next morning.
Right.
Now, I think your circadian rhythm, we said, was around that 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Correct.
So if we back up the 10 hours, when did you have to have the scotch in order to be compliant with that?
I go to bed at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
So So usually around 7:38.
Okay. So you tried to have the scotch in before 7 o'clock or not?
Yeah.
Did you tried that? How'd that work?
It worked okay. I didn't, sleep as well as drinking closer to when I went to bed. But then I didn't drink 2 of the nights. Friday and Saturday I didn't drink, and I didn't sleep. I mean, I think I got maybe between 3 or 4 hours of sleep each night. And you can ask Jen. I was constantly, I probably kept her up too. So
right.
I didn't have to be awake the next day. So like you said, if you can't, I just got up and.
It's a big deal. Okay, so first of all, I want to say thank you for just being brave enough to talk about this, because it is an incredibly common problem. That many times when I ask patients to say, okay, let's try to give you that 10-hour window, put your drink earlier in the night, what they usually do is they take the drink at like 6:30 or 7 o'clock, and then they want to go to bed because they're like, no. If I can't eat and I can't drink, then the best thing for me to do at this point is to go to bed early. And that's not bad. They sometimes the shift in the sleep time is just, there's too many changes going on. So your response to still struggling is not uncommon. I don't think I've ever talked with you about what happens to your sleep when alcohol's in your bloodstream. Have I done that?
No, I don't think, no.
Okay, so we're going to just do a little bit of teaching here. And I give this lecture, Brains of Addiction. I don't know if you've seen any of my posts on that, but Brains of Addiction, I talk a lot about the depth of sleep that you get. And when your brain gets this slow wave sleep, otherwise called delta wave sleep, that is when the pain receptors get reset. That's when your memories get reset. It's also, it's the most dangerous part of our sleep too. Babies get 90% of their night at this slow wave sleep. And if you change their diaper, they don't wake up. When adults get this slow wave sleep, they only get it for a few minutes, and then their body will wake up and check, can I smell smoke? Is the heart still beating? Are they still breathing? Kind of a life check. And then they'll cycle back down and try to get back to that slow wave sleep. Health 15 minutes of this slow wave sleep. But if the fire alarm goes off when you're in that slow wave sleep, you're not waking up until the cycle's over. So it's dangerous in that aspects that your body really shuts down. But it's also that type of sleep that really kind of churns and cleans the brain. And it's where the pain receptors get reset. You'll hear patients talk about they'll be on pain medication or alcohol, and they'll say, Doc, I can't sleep without it. My pain is so much worse without it. And you take an event like what you've done this week, which is I went walking in the streets of New York. I pushed my knee more than usual. Oh, by the way, I was kind of ketogenic, but boy, there were so many temptations. Who knows what my numbers were, and they weren't perfect. And then I just kind of reached for my good old faithful to get my brain to shut off and go to sleep. if I was to hook up electrodes to watch your brain sleep, you wouldn't get any slow wave sleep until at least 3 in the morning. If you're having that last drink at about 6 or about 9 o'clock, right before bed. So then that only gives you about an hour and a half to get some of that repair sleep. Well, you've got a human brain. There's no way that's possible. And when it comes to the habits of, doc, I didn't used to do this, but then the pain got worse. And I realized that if I took in a little alcohol, I could get that, brain to shut down. And now it's kind of a habit where if I don't do it, like you said, you didn't drink on Friday night and you didn't drink on Saturday night and you slept terribly, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So good news is that I am my first love was sleep. Sleep medicine is really something I am passionate about. It's probably what led me into that whole collection of patients with chronic diseases of the brain, and knowing that we couldn't ever heal them until we got their brain sleeping well at night. So if you had to look back, kind of looking at the accident, the injury from the accident, some of the pain meds after the transitioning to the use of alcohol when to really get a good night's sleep, how long would you say it's been? At least a week without any help of a sleep aid, and I mean alcohol in that list, and the pain meds from right after the accident. How long has it been since you've had a week of really good sleep without anybody helping you, without any help?
I would say probably since October.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're in the better part of 6 months, maybe even. Okay. And then if you go back, when you look at, when did you go keto? Is it 2 years? How long have you been keto?
No, it was summer. It was in August, end of August.
Okay, so it's this year. So this is your timeline. You've had a wife that went keto for a couple of years, so you got some exposure to it, but really yourself didn't dive in, lose the weight. That has all been within this last year. Is that fair to say?
Well, not all. I've lost some weight on just low carb.
Low carb, okay.
Not strict keto diet. And then in August is when I did the most of my weight loss. So I would say it's been probably a year since I've done low carb and then transitioned to keto. I started off, I was 285 pounds.
Wow,
that's amazing. And I'm 210 now. I'm almost to Wonder World, 10 more pounds. And I can't lose it because of this situation. Obviously my sleep and then my drinking to get what I think is sleep is affecting that, or not letting that happen.
And then you had a recent surgery this past fall as well.
I did. In October, I had they removed veins in my legs. I thought that would help with the flow and the inflammation, but it's actually made it worse. And I don't know if it's just temporary, but since October, my arthritis pain has been worse, and my IT band has been getting tighter, which increases the pain in my knee.
Right. Well, they are all connected. You look at those varicose veins, and they were just this tidal tides of blood flow that could drain the leg. When they vascularized them, they made the blood reroute. And some of that rerouting also impacted the lymph system in your leg to say, well, now that has to reroute too. So the inflammation gets stuck. And if you have kind of gooey white blood cells, and I mean they're inflamed, they've been living in insulin, something they'll just hang out in the pocket called your knee. And you're like, oh, that's not going to work out so well. It's going to hurt. It's going to be worse.
Yeah.
So there's some important things to say. How can we get the pain to be better while improving your knee? Because just take a minute to tell me what your sugars did when you didn't sleep.
Oh, 116 in my ketones was like 1.0, and then the next day 110, and my ketones were like 1.1.
Right. Well, I can say that they're a lot better than I've had some patients. Some patients, when they don't sleep, those blood sugars are up to 120s and 132. And again, you're a male with some good muscle mass, so your ketones are in that one range. But if I've got ladies, their ketones are like 0.3, and like, so like, oh, these are the worst numbers ever. I'm like, hang in there, hang in there. Part of this is what happens when the body has that stress. I mean, the sleep is a way to reduce the stress, decrease that stress, and then you get to start your next day. So if you don't get that kind of accumulation of the cortisol and all those stress hormones, they just keep going up, and your body will respond by saying, okay, we just got to get through this. And that's not fun. That's not good. That increases pain. So here is, we've talked a little bit about knowing this problem was probably going to come. And said one of the key components is if I put you in a sleep lab and I kind of like, I don't know, took away the rest of your world. You didn't have a job, you didn't have a wife, you didn't have kids. I got to study you. It would take about 6 weeks of steady sleep habits before I could get your brain to shut down like it's supposed to, and then wake up like it's supposed to. And that's how the pain would be better. So 6 weeks of just a complete timeout is like not in today's world. That nobody can do that. So there are some medications out there, and I think this will be interesting to use as a teachable experience to say, if we take booze and we put it in a pill, do you know that we did that? We put booze in a pill? No, you didn't know that. No, it's a great story. So it was in the late 60s or late 50s and 60s where these they took alcohol and they put it in a pill in hopes that the alcoholics would stop drinking. And so they put the booze in a pill, and my goodness, the patients say, "Doc, I've never had it so easy. This is great. I don't drink any booze. But boy, I sure want these pills." Excuse me. I'm like, uh-oh. And so in the background, the scientists, the experiment team was taking down the dose, and every person went back to drinking. It was a different dose and a different timing. But the moral of that story was, if you want to treat an addictive pattern behavior, do not replace it with another addictive substance. So if we wanted the booze to last for 5 days, we call it Librium. If we want the booze to last for 3 days, we call it Valium. If we want the booze to last for 2 days, we call it Klonopin. If we want the booze to last for a day, we call it Xanax or Ativan. Yeah, those are booze in a pill. They bind to the exact same receptors. We tweaked it a little bit, and we call it like Ambien or Sonata, and those are called benzodiazepine, type 1. Or the truth is they don't do anything nice to your brain, and you end up with these same habits of they don't really get the deep sleep needed to repair their sleep patterns. So in my clinic, I don't use any of those. They are not good for you long term. In fact, one of the first commercials ever for Xanax was in a magazine, and it says, "Xanax, it's like a shot of sherry." And I'm like, chemically, biochemically, about the same price. Anyway, the point I'm making is that we know very well what happens when people get on opiates for like right after your accident, and how it's going to shift your sleep cycle. It is our hope and prayer that we use those for very short periods of time so that your brain can use the wires, I call them wires, but they're neural pathways in your brain to shut down and sleep again. If that doesn't work and you say, boy, I need something to shut down, they'll start using alcohol. And the first night they'll use a little, and then maybe they'll go a couple nights, and then they use it 3 days a week. And then before you know it, it's a pattern like you've adapted, which is, boy, in order to get sleep, I got to use this crutch. And so if I could give you a timeout for 6 weeks, I could get those little wires to wake up again, and you could use them again. Or I can give you a prescription that will reprogram your brain in 3 days, in 3 nights sleep. And it's a protocol that, because you're my patient and I'm responsible for you, that process of shutting down your brain is a powerful reset, where after 3 nights of that prescription medication, they've had more of that slow wave or delta sleep in 3 nights than they would get accumulated in over 2 weeks in a healthy brain. It's a powerful reset. So I would contend that your ketogenic diet will continually run into this barrier of improvement until we fix this problem.
Right.
And sometimes that problem shows up in patients because they have untreated sleep apnea. Again, the brain is constantly out of oxygen. So they don't get that slow wave sleep for long enough. They don't get to repair. Their pain receptors get more noisy and irritable. And we got to fix the sleep apnea. Okay, sometimes a syndrome has started to unfold, like in your case, where this accident caused a pain. The pain led to this. They had less efficient sleep, less efficient sleep, less efficient sleep. They added some weight, so then the sleep apnea made it worse. And now we're like, all right, if we're going to get success, we kind of got to get messy and get your brain reprogrammed to sleep for a good solid several hours of sleep.
See, that's another thing. I have sleep apnea. I sleep with a CPAP, and I've lost 75 pounds. I was kind of hoping by now I would be able to kick the CPAP, but Jen will tell you that the days that I don't use it, I still snore, but let's put that machine back on.
Right. Well, and I would contend that until we get your brain using the right wires to shut down, that we don't have the privilege of doing that yet. You need a little help. And the good news is that you live in 2018 where we can do this in 3 days if you get a doctor on board to say, okay, here's how we'll do this. I can't wait for the audience next week to hear how this goes, because what days do you have off work?
So we got shift change, so I'm actually got a long days off. I go back to work Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then I get off at 4 p.m. on Thursday, and I'm off Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday.
Oh, we're going to have fun. You're going to have the best Christmas gift ever. Okay. So on the day that you get off that shift, we're going to use this medication, and we'll talk about that off screen. And you're going to take the medication at like 5 o'clock that night. Okay. It takes 2 hours to get to your brain. And I've had people sleep so hard and so long that essentially they sleep for 16 hours. I mean, it's a powerful sleep reset. And we practice that for 3 consecutive nights in a row. And I'll walk through this protocol with you and with Jen to make sure that you're guided as you do it. But it is, I've done this thousands of times with patients to say, if you want the fastest reset, thank God you live in today's world, and we can help with that. In the meantime, the day that you sleep, that you take the medication early, we're going to have you try to not have any food. We're going to add fasting to it that night. You'll not want to eat. You'll be so tired. So that's great. But especially you have the advantage of being ketogenic.
Right.
Using that, the body's kind of, got a good churn of the ability to produce ketones. And then it's not your first week. You're not going through like the keto flu or anything. So we get the advantage that your brain has already learned how to run off of ketones and has at least lower inflammation than it would have had when we started.
Yeah.
So lots of good improvements for that.
Awesome. Look forward to it.
Yeah, I think that's great. So if you can still help on especially the mornings that when you wake up, even if you wake up a lot later, to check that morning glucose and morning ketone, because just hearing about your pain syndrome, we're going to want to try and reach for that ratio. I can't remember if I said this to you or not, that if we are trying to kind of use autophagy to really recycle some of that stuff in your knee, we really would like to get those ratios to 40 or less.
Got it.
Did I say that before to you? I didn't say 40, I said 80. Okay. 80 is great for weight loss, and that's nice. But it's a little bit more, we're going to want to reach for a little higher level if we're going to get that knee to settle down.
So let me inject here. When you're saying that, I just want the audience to make sure that they understand what that means. We are testing our blood with a blood glucose meter that also reads ketones. The link for that product is in the show notes. But what we're doing is we're taking the glucose number and we're dividing it by the ketone number to get the ratio. And the ratio that I go for is 80%, because that's 80% or lower, because that's weight loss. She's instructing him to do a ratio of 40% or lower.
Right.
And that's going to be during the 3 day sleep.
Right. Well, you'd like to we're just going to put that out there to say that's our goal. If we can keep tweaking things, we probably won't reach our goal this next week. We got a lot of other things we're going to tackle, but just kind of putting out that foreshadowing to say, boy, he has this knee problem, and he's just had this recent surgery where the rerouting of his lymph system is really under construction, if you would. Mm-hmm. And the best outcomes would come in that time after surgery, that we keep that inflammation low. And if we can ignite some autophagy during that, you would find a lot of benefit for years to come if we can do that in this 6-month period after surgery. So I put that out there saying, just know that that's what we're reaching for. Don't be disappointed if it doesn't happen yet. It just gives you the mental notes that I'm taking to say, boy, he does have that knee. It is causing probably more pain than I appreciated when we first talked about it. And as we kind of remodel your sleep, just setting out the realistic, if we're going to look for that repair, we're going to need to shift that down to 40. Mm-hmm.
Got it.
All right. Well, by next Sunday, you're going to be a whole new man.
Hopefully so.
I don't know.
Speaking of Sunday's the 23rd. Are we going to do a live video on the 23rd, or should we skip it next week and dive in the next week?
Well, that's I would love to even do a short one just to see how he's sleeping, because he'll know it. If he's super tired and it's just you and I, it'll be an answer for everybody that he's still sleepy. I mean, I learn so much when people go through this protocol, because it teaches me about their sleep debt. So if you give this medication to me and I have a pretty normal sleep, I mean, after this last week, I didn't sleep much. It's probably the worst night of sleep consecutively that I've had in probably 4 years. But this past week, even my sleep debt, meaning how much am I really behind over the last 6 months, my sleep debt is still pretty low. I usually sleep 8 hours a night. I respect that time and really do stick to it. If you give that medication to me, I might sleep a couple hours longer. I might be a little groggy the next day, but I wouldn't. I mean, some patients, when they get this medication, they dive into a depth of sleep, and it's usually proportional to how much sleep debt, how hungry is their brain for this stage 4. There's a link of a lecture, it's probably 10 years old now, that's on YouTube. If you type in Dr. Boz and sleep lecture or sleep, when I first moved to town, this is what I gave. I would, as a way of advertising, I was just like giving this sleep lecture to anybody who was looking for some continued education. Oh, it got so dang popular. I finally just said, I'll put it up on YouTube. And the next thing I know, like 70,000 people have spent an hour. It's an hour long. So I would think, maybe I'll hit 300 or 400. So but the point is it's a very good lecture on what am I talking about here. And if you want to learn more, you can go watch that sleep lecture. It's a good summary of the basics of sleep.
So that we do have a question about the autophagy that you mentioned for John. They're asking, so is autophagy at 40% or below? Because I thought you had, for me, 80% in a 12-hour eating window. 12 hours, I thought you said, was the minimum for autophagy, but you really want it much deeper for him.
Right. So again, autophagy is something we can't measure. But we have these great scientific papers that teach us about it. We have some unbelievable breakthroughs in the last 2 years teaching us about it. We just have estimates about how we think a body, most people would be able to predict whether or not they have autophagy. The first thing that is you can't have robust autophagy when your insulin is high. Again, I can't go check your insulin. I mean, I could check your insulin, but that would mean you have to go to the lab, and you can't have a big bowel movement ahead of time. There's all these rules that say if you want to know if what their insulin is doing, there's a whole bunch of rules. So we use your glucose and your blood ketones as an estimate of autophagy, because you can't have really good ketones if your insulin's high. And if your insulin's high, your sugar's going to be, if your insulin's high, usually that happens when your sugar's high. So when you get these nice sugars below 100 and you get the ketones creeping up above 1.5, you get some really good ratios. And that is how we estimate our chances of being in autophagy. So let's back up a second and say, when I have a cancer patient and I am working to say, how can I put the greatest amount of stress on those cancer cells, but still let the body flourish and be revived, if you would, with the fuel of a ketone. I want their ratio to be 20 or less. And in that ratio of 20 or less, we can have a really high confidence that they are in autophagy. But it's hard. It's harder than snot to get them there. I mean, my mom, during her cancer treatment, she fasted for nearly 40 days with 1/4 of a cup of bone broth a day. And she was already on a ketogenic diet, thank goodness, but we didn't reach this ratio maybe three days out of that 40. And we ended up having to do some supplements with exogenous ketones to really get her over the threshold to keep that ratio correct. So that's really hard. So if you can get the ratio of 40 or less, I'm still quite confident that you're having a good percentage of the time with autophagy ignited. When you're 80 or less and you're doing ketogenic the other times, you still have some pretty good chances that autophagy is happening. It's just more flicker on and off. But the life that comes with 80 is so much more tolerable. Yeah. I mean, you got busy people doing this, kids, if you want to set them up for success, we put a goal up there to say, we're not going to die if we don't get there. But if we get there, I think you're going to get plenty of benefit by flickering that autophagy on and off in the times where, we do push your body or reach for a little higher number. But at least getting to 80, we get that on and off kind of sputter autophagy, if you would.
Got it. Yeah, totally. Good. Should we go to some questions now? Or do you still have more to do with John?
Well, I think that's plenty. I think the story of John is going to be best as we take a little bit like that every week. But I'll tell you, John, I have seen this story hundreds and hundreds of times. And I just want to say it's really a sign of your your commitment to try and finding a better way of health, that you bring this up early and not try to say, gee, doc, I don't know why my numbers aren't getting better.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. And, I'll try to tease around kind of getting a hint that this is going on, and knowing from my point of view, it's so common that we have great things to help take away the craving of alcohol and get your pain under control. Nothing speaks louder to my skills as when I walk somebody through this journey and they come back a year later saying, I just can't believe that I hardly need alcohol at all anymore. And I was at this chapter where, boy, if it wasn't for alcohol, I couldn't sleep. And boy, the next leg down it's a tough deal. And that spiral is so commonly started with an injury where the good intentions of doctors are trying to help you get through it with these pain medications. Boy, that will send a wrinkle through your sleep pattern. Before you know it, you've got a crutch under your arm, and now we got to undo it. So I just want to say thank you for being brave enough to talk about it, because it's such a helpful thing for patients.
Sure. And if I go off track and cheat, the third person that we're here with will definitely bust me out on.
Yeah, well, that's called marriage. I'm 20 years into this little equation too of marriage, and I'm like, this is how it works. That's how you stay together.
Well, I can tell you, as far as my sleep goes, I went from night shift to day shift back in 2008, and I think I went to night shift in 2005. I probably haven't slept eight hours since 2005.
See, there's another wrinkle in sleep patterns, that if you want to set up the candidate who has the hardest time reprogramming sleep, put them on night shift for a couple years, give them an injury, give them a little pudge tummy with some high insulin, and then, add some kids in there to, keep track of during the, just life.
Yeah.
And it's just that perfect, witch's brew that you add on all those ingredients. And now you have this pot full of bubbling mess. Mm-hmm. And it's fixable, but it's one step at a time. And it's the journey. It's why I love taking care of internal medicine or chronic illness, because we don't wake up tomorrow with this magical answer. But there are some golden nuggets of strategically saying, if you want to be successful on this ketogenic diet, we will get you there with taking care of some of these other things that are powerful in the recovery of patients.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
We have a question from Emberly, I think the name is. So just to clarify, is there a reason to eat first thing and then stop earlier in the day, or is it okay to put off eating for a while and stop eating later in the night? I think that's from what you tell me to do. I have insulin resistance. I struggle with hormones. And how do you answer that? Because I know.
So here's the deal. You know, I love the patients who come in and say, Doc, I'm a night owl. That's just how who I am. And I would contend that if you took away the electricity and I do mission work, so sometimes we end up in places that the whole, like Haiti, there's no electricity after sunset. And you get their candles, and my gosh, everybody seems to go to bed at sundown after the first week. So habits are in our culture of being very busy and, you know, work hours that are really long and lots of social rewards for cognitive performance that can go on into the night. But when you look at what is natural for our bodies, there are a few things we cannot reprogram. And one of those is a circadian rhythm. The circadian rhythm, even on a lower level, when I fast for 3 or 4 days and I do a strict salt and water only fast, you can still see my sugars go up right before I wake up in the morning, and my body will use them and I start producing ketones. That rise and fall of glucose is a product of your circadian rhythm. And it doesn't go away, it's there. You can't like say, but I don't want my circadian rhythm to start this morning. I want to sleep in. Okay, you can sleep in, but your circadian rhythm is still probably gonna not let you sleep really deeply or do the things that you would, you know, it's gonna follow the pattern of the sun. So when patients say, Doc, can I eat later and then eat late at night? I would say, I like you to look at your circadian rhythm, and most people that's somewhere around 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. You know, you can shift it by an hour or so, but it doesn't usually shift much more than that. And I need you to subtract from there. And in your case, I took 12 hours because you had been really stuck for several months. To say, I want no food in your stomach for those 12 hours, which really means you kind of got to eat at least a half an hour to 45 minutes before that timer starts, because we need it out of the stomach and into the intestines. That's when we really start your fast. What happens during that time is that your hormones do reset. Your insulin will go down when you don't eat for 12 hours prior to the start of your circadian rhythm. The habits that we end up in our culture say, but Doc, I'm not really hungry in the morning. And I would contend that if you at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I mean stop, salt and water only, and you did that, just do it for 2 days and watch what happens when you wake up in the morning, is that you do have hunger. So when people say, I just don't have any hunger first thing in the morning, that's a habit that has evolved. And it doesn't mean you have to eat. I mean, I think you have coffee first thing in the morning. I have coffee first thing in the morning, and then I try to eat that one meal around lunchish time, if I'm doing that. And it really does satisfy me, and then I usually can make it to the next morning. But I really like my coffee first thing in the morning. When patients come in and say, "Can I just shift it?" I said, if you do that, you're not going to lose much weight. You will still have so much insulin produced because of the timing that you're choosing to eat. And, you know, we have some awesome studies now that show a breast cancer reduction with time-restricted eating, that when you're on a high-fat, low-carbohydrate, ketogenic meal, that we are starting to see some of the other, like, really significant biomarkers that improve, that are correlating to a decrease in breast cancer, a decrease in, I want to say the other one was a colon cancer, if I remember right. Don't quote me on that one. The breast cancer, I know for sure. Anyway, the time-restricted eating has to do with the decrease in the insulin, and that is where they're getting these benefits from. So when somebody says, can I shift it? I'm like, first of all, I can prove it to you by having you check your glucose in the morning and your ketones in the morning. And I'll tell you, that ratio is not going to be pretty. You do have to stretch it to that 10 to 12 hours. And this is again, trying to guess how insulin resistant people are will help me guess, what time do they need with no food in order to get that ratio low enough so that we can spark their metabolism to really improve, not just for today and tomorrow, but for a lifetime.
Yeah. And just for my story, I had been stalled doing keto exactly the way I was supposed to. That is the only thing that helped me to start losing weight again, was to switch it to support eating. I call it supporting my hormones, eating to support my hormones. They shut down in the evening, early evening, so I can't eat when they're shut down. So that's my simple way of explaining it.
That's great. That's absolutely. And there's a lot to be said when I look at patients. I just had another patient this past week who's had a gastric surgery for their weight loss. And, I really encourage patients to think carefully before doing that. You take and you decrease the volume of food that goes in your stomach. And then you compare that to the power of, let me show you how to take every single one of those little cells in the muscles, in your spine, in your heart, in all of your body. And let me turn up the metabolism in millions of little mitochondria. And then we can show you weight loss that lasts for a lifetime. As opposed to, let's just decrease the flow of food or the space where it sits in your body. And I'm telling you, you're missing the boat. And the complications that I see as a physician after they've had these surgeries, I really encourage patients to do a ketogenic diet, listen to the stories that I'm using through you and through John, to save yourself the unbelievable heartache that happens when those gastric surgeries get done. And boy, the surgeons are tapping out at a year because I've done my part. Now you go live with the internal medicine doctor and they'll shoot cleanup. And yeah. I would contend that's where I see some of the most heart-wrenching stories, that they gained the weight back, their metabolism didn't improve, and now we have to really.
I don't know if I told you, but I am a Roux-en-Y patient, and it was back in 2009? No, 98, back before it was almost even heard of, and I did gain it all back. It was after I had a child where it stretched it again, and I would, if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't do it. Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I just think that the power of understanding metabolism has been, I've been on this rapid learning curve for 3 years, but I'm not there access to this information much than it used to be.
Yeah. Well, that leads me kind of to a question that was, by the way, Low Carb Inspirations plus Keto Friendly Recipes group, we taught questions I ask in there every week. Does anybody have questions for you? And here's one that came along with just about what we're talking about. They say, we kind of answered it, why is blood sugar high in the morning after fasting when they didn't have any cheats the night before? She takes thyroid medicine, but after 1 to 2 hours after she wakes up in the morning, her levels are better.
So when I look at what happens with the cortisol in your morning, this is something, again, that runs your circadian rhythm. You've heard of people taking prednisone. Prednisone is a steroid that is very similar to the own cortisol that your body makes in the morning. And as you sleep, your body really sets down into that healthy rest, that healthy sleep we talked about with John, that are going to wake you up. Cortisol is one of them. So if you've been insulin resistant, you can see that the production of cortisol releases sugar from all of these stored places. It's called glucagon. It's stored in all your muscle cells. It's stored in your liver. And as soon as that steroid is released, it comes out of the woodwork. It comes out of the cells. And that's why you'll see those blood sugars really high. So think of it as kind of like a hint to you and your doctor that you've been insulin resistant, that you've had too much stored sugar in your body over time. Now, you can guess that by somebody who's struggled with their weight. I mean, that's just part of the definition, is that you fill up all those storage tanks within our cells. And now whenever we give you a steroid, boy, their sugars shoot way up. And again, it's the same thing that's happening every night when you get up. the answer for, so why does it come down in the morning is that, well, now your body is awake and needing fuel. And when the sugar's there, your body is going to use it, and it's going to fill up the little furnaces in your mitochondria and burn that energy. And so it will come down.
Great.
But yeah, makes sense? Okay.
Yeah, totally makes sense. So the one other question that kind of goes along the same line is somebody wants to ask, first of all, what is your thoughts on carb cycling? And then somebody else says, well, can long-term carb restriction cause your T3 hormone to drop? And does carb cycling prevent this?
So there's a great kind of subtext about these carb cycling stuff. Again, a ketogenic diet, we're trying to get your body to run off of ketones. It's usually the most helpful in people who've had high insulin. And you could say that that's a small subset of the universe, but I'll tell you, it's most people who've ever been more than 15 pounds overweight is that their insulin's been high, their glucose is compensated, and they might not know it, but it's, when you get into the studies, it's very, very, very common. So we're saying your body is going to do a lot better at aging, repairing, handling the free radicals and stress if you keep those carbs less than 20, and it learns to run off of ketones most of the time. So people get into this diet, and about week 4, 5, or 6, they'll start to say, can I have a cheat day? I call that compliance. Just like if I was going to write a prescription for blood pressure medicine, I would know that at the end of the year, you'd probably have about 15 pills left over, and you would have no idea why those pills didn't get taken. But that makes you human, that you just, the habit wasn't there, or you thought you did it, but you didn't, that you kind of make a mistake. In the ketogenic diet, compliance looks at how well did you stay under those 20 carbs a day, how well did you stay ketogenic, and that's why I really love people checking their blood glucoses and blood ketones. When I get a patient who's talking about the T3 and do I want to do this and carb cycling, the first thing I start is, let's see how metabolically clean you are. And so just like when we first started checking you, we found some pretty good numbers that were in the 60s. Then stress hits, and that the ratio goes up a little higher. And then you get back on board, and it's going to come down again. If I look at most people who have been struggling with their weight and they've got some of the thyroid problems going on, I would love them to get to a ratio of a 40, much like we were talking with John. But the carb cycling part of this is this past week, my goal for myself is to get to 40 and to try to stay there most of the time. The last week, you could call that carb cycling. I call it falling off the wagon. I call it stress. It shows up and you just like, okay, I couldn't do it. And I would contend that if you study human behavior, that's going to happen. I mean, very rarely, even in your case where you said, I followed every rule for 18 months. Mm-hmm. When we really got to looking at the ratios, there were certain things that were still causing your body to produce insulin and to have that response and to hold on to the weight. I set a lesser goal for John, but really did set a goal of 80 for you, knowing that we might get away with just using that goal. It might be clean enough for your body to lose the weight all the way down to those 50s, that 50 pounds. When patients talk about this thyroid T3 cycling and such, I kind of push this aside and say, you're going to carb cycle whether you plan on it or not. This is called being human. Let's just start talking some strict numbers. If you look at what I set the goal for my thyroid patients, it is a 40 or less for a good 3 months before we say, okay, I think we're good.
Wow. So another question, 1 meal a day. So I find that I'm even doing sometimes 1 meal a day, but I don't think I'm getting my calories in.
So yes, you can do 1 meal a day and still lose weight. What you'll see me, I've done a couple of videos on this, and I get this question a lot. What I'm careful to notice is that when the dangerous part about 1 meal a day is that people stop eating to a sense of fullness. So again, we want these growth hormones. We want your leptin the surge of cholecystokinin, all these fat-based hormones to be cycling, and we don't want them just kind of a blip in your hormone profile. We want them peaking and valleying, peaking and valleying. And you'll know you're doing that not because of a calorie counter, not because you'll know that we're doing that because you feel full. So the danger I put out there for people who are having one meal a day is they fall into their old habits of cutting calories, and they forget to get full. Now, it doesn't mean stuff yourself. It does mean listen to your body. If you feel the surge that says, okay, I know I usually have the peanuts after I eat the Brussels sprouts or whatever. Okay, try not to listen to that guy in your head. Listen to the one who says, oh, I feel full. And then zip it. Stop eating them. So that's where you'll hear me say, be careful on a one meal a day, is that these old sneaky habits come back into play and they fall into a pattern that really is much more, it mimics the one meal a day. I mean, it mimics low calorie when they're on one meal a day, and that's dangerous. You're gonna fall out of that good metabolism.
Got it. Well, I think that's, we just have a few minutes left, and I just want to talk a little bit about your book. I want to tell people that you did write a book. It's called Any Way You Can. You can find it, the link in the notes of this broadcast. It is an excellent book. I highly, highly suggest it. You will, I highly suggest it because you will go back and reference certain chapters. I think I've gone back to Autophagy with, I think is chapter 23. I think I've gone back over it 3 times. And
I was thinking, just reflecting, a year ago today, I had finished the editing of it. And again, it's the first time I'd ever written a book. I wasn't planning on this. This book came from the notes that I wrote when my mom was I was trying to teach my mom this autophagy diet, and I had kept the notes. And my husband had told me about 100 times before I did it that I should write a book. And I was done writing it. I had was working on the graphs and stuff in the book. And I remember just having this self-talk, this self-prayer saying, am I going to be brave enough to push publish? To put yourself out there. And I mean, I've done that a few times in my life where it doesn't work out so well. And so the courage to say, this is a powerful, life-changing, career-changing way to think. And I just want to say I'm so thankful I pushed publish. So
good for you. Well, I'm very happy that you pushed publish because that's what led me to you. I'm very happy that you were able to come on to this channel and really help a lot of people. I think walking through these journeys is, believe it or not, helping thousands of people. If you're watching the replay, just let us know where you're from and that you're watching the replay. Don't forget to get the book, but most importantly, Christmas is around the corner. It makes an awesome stocking stuffer for somebody who really wants to get healthy, but wants to do it in a way that is just meaningful. And it's, once you get the science behind it, it's not that hard. So it really does help to understand why we do what we do.
And to me, it makes it easier after reading the book to explain to people who ask, or else you're crazy. You're going to get ketoacidosis and die.
Yeah.
When before I wouldn't know how to answer that, but after reading this book, now I have the information put in layman's terms where I can answer those questions.
Yes. So
I love it. I think it's a great teaching field. I've never had this big of a classroom, so I'm totally stoked. I love this.
Awesome. So the other thing I want to mention is that a lot of the things that we've talked about, I've made a quick reference sheet. It's a download that you can you can print off. In fact, it looks like this. It's a sheet with all of the references, how to start, problems, keto flu, grocery list. It has everything. So if you could, if you want this printable, go ahead and I just put the link in the comments. You can go ahead and put your email address in there and I will send it to you so you can print it off. And feel free to share it with anybody who needs help starting keto, or maybe if you've come across some problems, there's even a replay list for all of the videos that we've done. Be sure to check out Dr. Boz's new website that just launched this week. It's BozMD, BOZMD.com. She's got some really good products on there that she likes. She's got some good information. So thank you for coming on again. John, thank you for sharing your story. That's extremely brave of you to share the story that I'm sure so many people struggle with. And I'm excited to see how this sleep therapy is going to go for him. So
the 23rd, I might have my nightcap.
Christmas outfit.
All right. Have a good night, guys. Thank you.
All right. See you next week, guys.
Please subscribe to my channel. And if you want me to give you a ring the next time I put out content, click that little bell.